We're still in our first recession in a generation, and we came into this off the back of fairly stagnant economic performance over recent years. Productivity going down, wage growth very slow, problems in retail. So Australia approaches this from a macroeconomic position of weakness rather than strength.
In terms of the wage subsidies, it's being touted that we are going to see them cessate from March. There have been a number of proposals that have been putting forward in terms of perhaps wage incentives for young people was released today. But in your mind, what do you think needs to be done? Do we need to extend them even longer, or does there need to be some kind of comprehensive reform in terms of industrial relations to really ensure that, you know, those most vulnerable aren't being left out to dry?
You're absolutely right to focus on the most vulnerable. They're the workers who've been unable to telework. Teleworking is fine for lawyers, not so good for people who clean the offices of lawyers. And that's the most vulnerable Australians who've been hurt. So we need to make sure their interests are looked after. We also need to make sure, as well as prioritising jobs, that we're prioritising education. Now, this has been a human capital catastrophe in terms of both the health and the education impacts. And so investing in health measures would be vital. Labor has today proposed a Australian Centre for Disease Control. We're the only OECD country not to have one. And we've been calling on the government to do more to open up university places. So there's an awful lot that needs to be done to ensure that Australians are earning or learning rather than simply languishing on the unemployment line.
Another thing being proposed is bringing forward those tax cuts. I just wanted to get your take on whether this will be necessary, or whether you are in support of bringing forward not just only the stage 2, but potentially stage 3 in some respect. Do you think that it has merit as a behavioural trigger, I suppose, in order to encourage people to spend when we've got the savings ratio right now sitting at just a shade under 20%?
It's hard to see how giving tax cuts to people on $200,000 plus does anything for participation. I don't imagine there's many people who are choosing between welfare and work who'd otherwise be earning wages that high. It's also hard to see how that could be the best thing to do to stimulate the economy. Stimulus only works when it's actually spent, and we know that high-income earners save about a quarter of what they earn. So that doesn't seem to Labor to be the best use of scarce resources at the moment.